definition of done in Scrum is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. Definition of done really represents the level of quality that your product has, but it's almost that line you have to cross. If you look at the US Department of Defense guide detecting agile bullshit, one of my favorite articles, you'll see it talks about working product in front of real users every iteration, including the first. The Agile Manifesto talks about working usable product at least every few weeks, at least every few months, right? And Scrum is probably the strictest of them that says you need to have usable working product at the end of every sprint. Every sprint, you must have usable working product. That doesn't mean you're gonna ship it. Although, why would you build a bunch of value and then not amortize it, right? There's that, right? But the minimum for Scrum, the minimum to be doing Scrum is that you need a usable working product at the end of the sprint. That usable working product is the foundation of risk mitigation in Scrum. Ultimately, usable working product is the foundation of risk mitigation in all of Agile practices, right? But it's also that moment of transparency, right? If you think about the other transparencies in Scrum, you've got transparency of the future with the product backlog. You've got transparency of the present with the sprint backlog, and then transparency of the past is the increment, right? And the way we enable transparency of the past is through committing to the definition of done. Without that commitment to the definition of done, having a definition of done that represents usable working product and meeting it at the end of every sprint, then the other two transparencies are irrelevant, right? Unless we can see what we've done, how can we know where we're going? If you don't know where you are and where you've been, how do you know how to get to where you want to be? You have to understand what's in your product currently, whether it works or it doesn't, i.e. is it finished or is there more work to do to make it get to that point, before you can figure out how do we, if this is the future state and this is the current state and our backlog represents a diff between those two states, if this is a false state, i.e. it's not transparent where we currently are, maybe we're here, maybe we're there, maybe we're over here. If we don't know, then we don't know the journey we have to take between those 2 points, right? So definition of done is the commitment to quality that enables us to have that point. And then the next little journey is your sprint backlog, but we still have to know where we are to know where at the end of the sprint we need to be, right? So that's that critical importance. And we use that as our risk mitigation in Scrum. In traditional models, you're going to look at across the entire life of the project, right? You're going to look at all of the risks that might possibly happen. And then you're going to create a bunch of mitigating actions should those risks arise. And that's part of your plan for the whole thing. But in Agile, we're not planning that far ahead. We're planning more often, but in smaller chunks to see if we get there. So the way that we mitigate risk in that story, and we don't go off in the wrong direction, we don't build a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually work, and then we find out later, right? That's adding risk. We need that working usable product. So the definition of done is the most important and foundational concept in Scrum, and I would suggest all of Agile. Knowing what it means to be done is that important. Yeah, so that definition of done being so important is absolutely critical to the success of any product. And here's a good test that you can use with your team. If you have a team, if you work with a team, if you're a leader and there are teams, right? Go ask somebody on the team, perhaps bring it up at the review, right? ask what the definition of done is if they haven't articulated it to you. And if the answer is anything other than our definition of done is this, if it's anything other than that, they don't have one. If the answer is it's on the wiki, right? They don't have one. Because if it's on the wiki and each individual member of the team can't articulate it, what are the chances that they're meeting it? Therefore, it does not exist. So have a definition of done. Get one if you don't have one. Definition of done, the most important thing in Agile and Scrum. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like, follow, and subscribe. I always reply to comments, and if you want to have a chat about this or anything else Agile, Scrum, or DevOps, then please book a coffee with me through Naked Agility.